Today we're going to be learning about illustrators and how to use space on our paper the way they do to tell a story, as well as using some different shading techniques such as stippling and hashtags in order to, or crosshatching is the other way to talk about it, to create the shading that a lot of illustrators, especially what you see in the book If the Dinosaurs Came Back by Bernard Most, and how he created this book and story and how it really pops as an illustrator. So we're going to read the book first, and as we're reading it and watching it, I want you to take note of what type of shading do you see on these dinosaurs and what stands out most to you. Where does he, as the illustrator, choose the color and how the color and space is being used in each of his pieces, and what other things that you notice. So what you're going to be doing is putting your art cap on and thinking like an illustrator. So let's get started. All right, so today what we're going to be doing is we are going to be working on drawing our very own illustration as if we were an illustrator as part of the book If the Dinosaurs Came Back. So what I'm looking for us to learn on this project is we're going to be working on adding value to simple characters and animals, just like the dinosaurs in the book. You've got the black and white buildings, and then you have the pops of color of the dinosaurs in that illustration. So you can add in any type of detail of a dinosaur that you want. You can have it more realistic or more cartoon-like. That's your choice. And you're also going to be learning about making something look three-dimensional. So we're going to have stippling, which is one of my favorite things to do, as well as overlapping and just using our city landscape in the background to create some space before we move into some other projects this year. So after you read the story, If the Dinosaurs Came Back, think about just how helpful the dinosaurs would be if we had them, today. Like, what would it be like if we had dinosaurs living among us? You could think about they could do things like, cutting down some trees, they could build things, give rides. There's so many different things that you could use. So what I'm going to have in my video first is I'm going to be drawing with a marker. What I would like you guys to do is just start with a pencil first. Okay, the first thing I want to do is to have our paper in a landscape because we really want to show a large dinosaur in a large environment. If I had it the other direction, vertical, then that means I would only get like a tiny screenshot of what's really happening in the picture. So the first thing I want you to do is to draw your dinosaur. So take this time, now I've got some different drawing sheets of examples of dinosaurs, and I want it to be rather large, but you also want to have space for your buildings. So think about somewhere, around the middle of your paper. It could be a little bit lower, but you could have the tail going off the page, but I really do want to see the body of your dinosaur. So take that time now to work on that part. The next thing that I want you to do is once you have your dinosaur the way you want it, you're going to go in and you're going to do short little lines. So what I do of my cross hatching is I practice having different lines, different lengths like this to create some texture. So you can all have it the same line, or you could have it all different size lines. So think about, where's your shadows? Where are those shadows going to be? This technique is called hatching. So, cross hatching is when you cross it, but when you're just drawing your lines, you can create shadows by using hatching. Afterwards, the next thing that I like to do, because we're adding the value using our hatching to, its under part of its stomach, the sides of the legs, its neck and tail, to kind of give that value of where things are. The next thing that you can do is add stippling. So stippling is when you're not hurting your marker, you're just doing different dots. And we've practiced this of the closer the dots are, the more value it's going to look darker, but whereas the further the dots are, it doesn't look as dark, right? So you can see some of these different ones. So I would like to see your stippling on your dinosaur based on what you have. Now remember, if you have some other details, like maybe on my dinosaur, I added in some other lines and dots, because I really want to have some character pieces to my dinosaur. You could go in and you could actually add stippling inside your dots around the edges and make them look darker, the value. Or you can go in and you can add in your hatching and just have those hatch lines to make it look darker in those areas. So have fun creating your own stippling and hatching effects on your piece. All right, so now once you have your dinosaur done, what I want you to do is we're going to create our cityscape. So I need to put my dinosaur where it's not floating on the background. So I'm going to draw where I want my horizon line to be. So the horizon line is where the sky and the ground meet. So I don't want my dinosaur to be like way below, because I want to see my buildings. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to maybe have my line for my horizon line be here. And so as I can see it, it might move a little bit, and that's a-okay. Don't worry if it's not perfect, because I think that's what makes it interesting, is when it's a little bit more wavy, it's not as straight, and that's entirely fine too. And then what we're going to do is we're going to draw our buildings. So think about the types of buildings that you want to see. You can make any types of buildings you want. They could be tall, they could be short. It's all up to you. You can start in pencil and you can work your way into Sharpie or a black marker. It's really whatever you've got. And remember, this is your animation. So think about whatever it is that you want to see in yours. You can start off with one building and adding the windows that you want, and you can jump to another. You can think of how, Chicago looks. Do you want to see any fun doors? No fun doors? It's really up to you. So take your time now to fill up the whole background. Once you have your buildings with the doors and the windows completed and some of those extra details that you might want to add, start looking at the foreground. So remember, your dinosaurs in the middle ground and then your buildings are in the background. Here, start adding things that you might come across in the street. So you can create any sort of cars or vehicles, motorcycles, whatever it is that you would like. Maybe yours is not old cars similar to the Illustrator that we were looking at for the book of If Dinosaurs Come Back. Maybe you're doing more of what you would like to see out on the street. You could have sidewalks, you could have bicyclists, you could add in, say it's Chicago, like Lakeshore Drive, you have the ocean view, or ocean, I call it the ocean, the lake view, but any of those other things that stand out for you. So these, I have examples of different cars and other vehicles that you could try drawing as well. But remember where you're going to place things. We practiced overlapping. So maybe you have something behind the dinosaur, or it's larger when it's closest to you, and you have another one that's overlapped where it's behind it. So you have a couple cars kind of next to each other. So think about those things. Remember, anything that is further in the back is going to be smaller. You don't want a car as large as your dinosaur. You want the dinosaur to be the largest and the center of your attention, also known as the focal point. So here, I'm just taking my time. You can do this in pencil. I am using a Sharpie because it's easier to see in the video. But if you feel like just jumping right into using the Sharpie, go right ahead and do that. Add as many as you would like to make the scene more interesting. Once you have most of this completed, or the majority of it, you can always add in on your cars and different things, the stippling that we are practicing and the cross hatching. But what we're going to be going to do next is coloring. And all we're going to color with, I know as silly as it may sound, is either color pencils, but in the video here, I am using crayon. So you want to make sure that you're grabbing the correct crayons, and that's what I'm showing here in this part is I want you to grab your primary colors. So that means a true red, a yellow, and then a blue. So make sure you check the label because, especially before you draw, or try testing it out on the back of your drawing paper to see if you have the red, if it doesn't have a wrapper. And what you'll notice is it should just say red and not something like red orange or reddish purple, magenta. All of those are tertiary colors and different. So as long as it looks more like a true red, that's what I'm looking for. We are going to be coloring 3 areas. The dinosaur is one, the sky is another color, and the ground is the 3rd color. So as you're going to notice that the Sharpie that we used is not going to be covered by the crayon. The crayon will just be a nice transparent look over it. So all of your shading and detail is more the ink part that we did. So as you go to color, just using the crayons, you can also add shading this way by pushing harder and pushing lighter. So you can play with the concept of, here, I'm going to put my yellow down, and then when I'm done, I am going to add the darker by pushing harder with my crayon of where I have my cross-hatching or certain areas of a lot of stippling. And you can practice this as well in your art sketchbooks and just test what you like looking better. So here I am going to make this dinosaur one solid yellow. And if you wanted your sky to be red and the ground to be blue, you could easily do that as well. It's entirely up to you. So take your time as you color. It is going to feel a little tedious, meaning when you go to color this, we are using a 12 by 18 paper, and it took me quite some time to color all of this, especially because I want to see good quality coloring. So take breaks if you need, work in sections. I always work in small groups for myself so that way I can cover it a little bit better. You also may want to turn your paper. Think about the ground, like for the streets. You don't have lines that are vertical, you always have horizontal lines. So you want to color it horizontally, where you're going left to right. And the sky, maybe you want to color going up and down vertically because you want it to look taller and bigger. So think about those things as you're coloring. Can't wait to see what you guys create, and when you're done, take a picture and put it on Artsonia. As you're doing the coloring, think about where you're coloring. And if you're going, if it's long, you want to go left and right. If you want to make something look tall, you usually go up and down when you color. So the sky, you could do up and down. For the ground, it's usually, for a road, it usually goes this direction. So you notice that's what I'm doing. I'm just going nice and slow. You could push hard or you could push light, but I want to see good coloring in, good quality. Go slow. You can always outline when you're next to something. You can push a little darker and harder underneath, as you can see here, and it just makes it look like the car has a little bit of a shadow. So those are some things that you can do, and you can always go back to where you were coloring. It's up to you. So what I want you to do is just really focus on your good coloring skills and filling in the whole of the areas of just your dinosaur, the floor, and the sky with your primary colors only. All right, so as you can see, I spent a lot of my time adding in the details with my marker and then going in with my crayon. And like I was saying before, if there's areas that you want to have a little bit of shadow, you can push your crayon down a little bit harder next to those areas, and it creates like a shadow underneath your cars that you made, or if you want a little bit under your dinosaur, so it makes it look like your dinosaur is more in the space like this. And because obviously they're huge, they're going to make a really dark shadow somewhere, right? So those are some things that you can go back and fix. Look and see, are there areas that there's a lot of white showing that you want to go back and just make it, you can see your coloring a lot better. It's a big paper, so it's going to take us a little bit longer to fill the space. All right, so there we